Hello, friends and lovers. This is your Haelian. I'm here to do something very special for you today, which is to read Steam reviews for Hades 2. I played and enjoyed the first one a lot. This one is a downgrade in comparison with the first one. You know, Alemdar00, I don't totally disagree with you on this. It almost feels like Hades 2 is unfinished, almost like it's in early access or something. So yeah, it does feel like a mild downgrade compared to the first game in its current state, perhaps. However, I can't help but notice that we get this sentiment very often when judging these games, possibly a lot of sequels, where if you like the first one better, then the second one isn't even worth touching. I don't know why we're treating these things like you can only have one, like they aren't separate entities, like you must choose somehow between the two games. And if you like one more than the other, then the other one just sucks major boners or something. To be honest, I don't really see why I would be playing this over the original Hades. I think it's fairly expensive for what is basically a reskin. I'd much rather see Supergiant Games go for actually new projects. It's interesting that they managed to judge the entire game in less than an hour, but at the same time, I get it. Like, if it doesn't click with you after like an hour, you kind of gave the game a fair shot, in most cases at least. But it is fascinating that if you really liked the first game, that you didn't even manage to hit 1 hour to determine if you enjoyed the second game, if supposedly you love the first game that much, you know what I mean? I guess this game is moderately expensive for an early access title, but once you know what's actually in the game, it's a pretty damn big bargain. So it's a pretty bad defense to say it's a reskin and an expensive one at that. I played the first Hades a lot, and I do not share the positive reviews of the other gamers. This feels more like the same game with no real upgrade in the graphics or anything. It's more of a Hades 1.5 with a different character who, yes, plays differently, but it's not fun to me. Most weapons are boring and don't do any damage, so it becomes very annoying to do runs again and again, while the mobs dish out damage to you, but it takes you forever to kill most mobs and even longer for bosses. I mostly played the axe because it seemed like the only viable weapon. The god powers, trinkets, etc. are okay, but don't feel powerful most of the time, and even the tarot cards, etc. I didn't feel like becoming stronger, but still needed to grind through the mobs by spamming attacks all the time. It doesn't feel very tactical, except maybe against the bosses, who are fine, but some have attacks, which are hard to dodge. I almost just feel like this was written by ChatGPT or something, They said the weapons don't deal any damage, but also they mostly played the axe. They played like one weapon, and they determined the rest are all a bunch of bullshit or something like that. And also, I don't find it believable that you were unable to get any stronger. It's fascinating to me that they didn't somehow find a way to deal more damage because, I don't know, like the rest of y'all when playing the game, but I deal dozens of the damages all the time. And yeah, sure, I guess I got a lot of the meta progression, but after, golly, 36 hours, you'd think that, they'd have a good amount by that point in time. But you know what? I'm sorry that they didn't somehow find it. I liked Hades, but not this one. It is too slow for me. The combat system felt a bit weird. Overall, it is a good game, but maybe it's not for me. Darkios, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I get it. This is more than a welcome review in my mind. But I kind of wanted to talk about the sentiment that people have with Hades 2, especially when they first get it, which is that it's too slow. What does slow mean? What are we saying when the game is too slow? Is your character moving too slow? Are you attacking too slow? Are the runs too long, thus the game feels slow? Do the animations feel slow? What is slow? What are we talking about here? Because if you ask me to judge the two games and try to go as fast as possible, it is essentially the same as Hades 1. Entering a room and then exiting a room is pretty much the same length of time for the most part when playing these two games. So please, just tell me, what do you mean? I had a lot of fun playing this until patch 2. So much stuff was nerfed and it's just not fun anymore. Maybe they'll fix it in the future, but I think I'm done playing this for now. I'm racking my brain here, and a couple things got nerfed in patch 2, but also I think 10 times the amount of things that got nerfed got buffed in patch 2, honestly. So it's fascinating that you're really hung up. It just sounds to me that you may be the kind of player who literally played the same weapon, the same aspect, the same build every single run because it was the most powerful thing. This is the meta. This is how you play the game at the best. And then when that got touched, it's just like, oh, I guess I'm done with this game now. You think with 40 hours of playtime, they probably had a pretty good time and was worth recommending, but whatever. This game was not for me. I'm sure it's great for a lot of others, but personally, the game loop of running the same floors with extremely little variance over and over did not engage me. The game is very word and story driven, which I have no patience for. I care little about the characters, I just want to get to the gameplay. This game fell very short of engaging me at that level. Almost the only difference from run to run are the buffs your character has. In my experience, the differences in buffs did not make a significant difference in gameplay from run to run. The bosses almost do not vary at all. For example, in every act you will always face the same end boss, and I almost never saw any variance in mid-act elite, other than it changing once in Act 1 in my 6 hours of gameplay. The hook of the game, I suppose, is supposed to be that you unlock permanent buffs that help you along future runs. The game throws so many choices of minorly impactful buffs that it's hard to remember what's good and what's not. There are a few that shine, but you can't rely on them, so runs end up all feeling the same. For how much the game costs, I did not get enough gameplay and fun out of it to be worth it. This review was kind of fascinating because it sounds to me like they definitely did not play Hades 1, right? Because it feels like they probably would have learned their lesson if they had played Hades 1. It's also a little frustrating to hear that they really do not want a word/story-driven game, as they put it, which they have no patience for. And it's fascinating to hear that because there are almost 0 cutscenes in this game. I can think of like 1 cutscene in this game off the top of my head right now, where you're actually forced to kind of interact with the game outside of just smashing your sword against enemies, you know what I mean? So it's fascinating to me that they feel like they were forced to do it, and they don't care about the characters. But hey, you know, if that's how you want to play the game, that's how you can play the game. And I feel like I want to highlight that you can just smash that button through all the like, you don't have to listen to Zeus talk about his nieces and nephews all day long, like 100%. I don't know how they managed to make so many things worse. The weapons are slower, have less combo potential, and the new charge attack mechanic is stupid. Reroll is still bad. They recycled some of the worst upgrades and added a ton of filler that doesn't feel fun or cool to play with. Now your special has been nerfed as the secondary resources for Omega attacks, which is standing still for a second or two to charge a better attack. The game rewards range and punishes you for playing in the way that made the original good, even down to basic enemy design. No movement between autos. Combos are worse. There's no dash combo. They gave dashing a delay. There's nothing cool about standing still and using a resource to do damage. They added a sprint, but it feels bad to use, and you can't utilize it in a meaningful way outside of travel. I'm not going to bother to read this whole thing because but they got a lot of complaints. You know what? Good for you. You know, you got your feedback lined up, that's for sure. But it sounds to me like you just want Hades 1. Or so I thought until I read the end of your complaint here. At which point you said it's too expensive for what it is basically DLC. So you're saying that the changes that they did make are terrible, but also it's too similar to the first game and you want your money back. And I'm just so confused. Like, which one do you want it to be? They're saying that you only brought back the bad things from the first game. What are the bad things? Like rerolls? Like you don't like the rerolls? How could you not like rerolls? I don't understand what's wrong with rerolls. Oh my god, I don't have time for all this. You know what I mean? I just don't got time. I guess someone's gonna appreciate this, but I mean, look at this. Come on, this video is already gonna be too long. They slowed and tuned the game down. Combat is slower, more meticulous and punishing. Movement is not as smooth and lost that snappy, responsive feeling with not much to compensate those changes. Things changed that worked so well in the first game, and don't fix something that isn't broken. A lot of the mechanics revolve around holding buttons now, and it feels bad and tiring to use. Here are the issues I have with the game so far. The dash. There's only one dash. It's slower, has a small delay, delayed iframes, and a long recovery delay. Update made it so you can now animation cancel out of most attacks. I don't think that's really what the update did at all, just to be clear. And they're mentioning things like iframes and delayed iframes and stuff like that. And it's just like, I mean, what are you talking about? You know, like, I mean, I know what you're talking about. Most people aren't going to know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know why you're dissecting the game to this degree. Sprint, the new game mechanic, sprint. After you dash, you can hold the dash button to sprint. This feels clunky to use. It doesn't transition well during combat. You can't sprint without dashing first, so if the dash is on cooldown, you can't sprint or make use of the sprint boon. You can't attack while sprinting. You can't use its momentum to transition into something offensive. It has a wind-up, no toggle option. It's tiring holding the button down while sprinting. There's no way to rebind it to a different separate button. Sprint is implemented in such a way I generally avoid using it. Sprint isn't inherently bad, but it's not executed well enough to compensate for the lack of dashes. as it offers no natural transitioning into the game's mechanic. It's just its own thing. Honestly, I'd probably hate this game if I didn't know how to use the sprint either. Like, no, they straight up avoid using it, they said. Like, they don't sprint. I would probably have a horrible time if I didn't use sprint in the game. I would hate this game if you didn't allow me to sprint in it, because it is a clear and core mechanic. Also, I don't know how someone gets tired from holding down a video game button that much. They seem to have a really big problem with holding down buttons, you know? I don't know why they think it's better or easier or somehow more fun to simply mash the button at a feral pace instead and just like pray that things work out in the game, but apparently that's what they would prefer. It's not a bad game, but it just isn't as good as the first Hades. This is a fascinating one that comes up often where people say it's not bad, but at the same time they don't recommend it. So you're saying, I guess it's an okay, maybe even a good game, but you don't think that other people should play it. Also, your main reasoning is that it's not as good as the first game, and I just don't understand why that's a requirement. Why is it a requirement that one game has to be better than this other game, even if whether it's a sequel or not, in order to make it playable? I just don't really understand. Like, at what gap does there need to be in order to make it playable? If it's 5% worse than the other game, does that mean no one should ever bother playing it? Like, where do you draw the line? I don't understand. It seems lightning does not strike twice. Hades 2 is one of the biggest disappointments of a sequel I have ever seen. It's astounding they dropped the ball this badly. Dash has a delay now. For no reason. You hit the button and have to wait for a charge-up animation, where in the first game you just instantly dodge. Sprinting is a nice addition, but limiting turn speed while doing so makes it feel like you are slipping around on ice. It just feels bad. Because of these fundamental changes, movement just feels sluggish compared to the first game. Can't recommend in this state. It's funny how this rather small and minute change to the game has somehow completely ruined it in your eyes. Like, it is the biggest disappointment, you called it. They dropped the ball this badly because you have one dash instead of two. You lost 50% of your dashing prowess, and instead they give you a different function that I guess you don't like, and therefore this makes the game the worst thing that you've ever seen. It's just, I mean, how can you hate change this badly? I don't know how to fix this for you. This is the Dark Souls 2 of Hades. Boons/weapons are super boring. Most of the game is based around farming materials to unlock features that should be available right away. Yeah, 73 hours, hon. Oh my god. I mean, you almost doubled your playtime, but you still don't think this game is worth playing? I mean, that's how the first game worked, right? You play the game to unlock the things. I don't understand. There just comes a point where, was this really not worth the purchase price for you? I mean, at the time of 40 hours for what you had, like, did you hate it the whole time? You couldn't have hated it that bad. You played for 33 more hours at that point. But apparently it was so bad that you decided to leave a negative review. What? I despise the use of pentagrams. They aren't even Greek. Neither is the Seal of Solomon. Get your garbage BS out of it, please. I mean, neither is a sea creature rock band. I don't know why they drew the line at pentagrams like, oh no, this is too scary for me. This game got real spooky real quick, so I can't be bothered with it. Pros, fancy Aphrodite art. Cons, no rerolls on start. If you got garbage, eat garbage. If you want reroll first buffs for the same god, so no changes on restart. Need smoother auto aim. If build is not good, buy random, play tedious, annoying, long run with low DPS. No fun, please make less HP but more damage. I guess I could decide that maybe they didn't play the first game, because in the first game, it took you like 30 hours to get your very first reroll. I don't know how much that has really changed at this point in time, but they are correct that you do not start with rerolls. So if you are offered the boon of garbage, you're going to have to eat that boon of garbage. You might actually have to play the game and make use of the things offered to you instead of simply manipulating it and just getting the same Aphrodite boons every single run. Makes me enjoy the first one even more. Nothing is better or improved, the town area is clunky, and none of the gimmicks flow together. Every single weapon and boon is worse. Boss design is just a 3 difficulty until they crank Chrono Eris to 14. I don't really like anything about it, and the first one is in my top 5 games of all time. Do your own research though, it's just really not for me. Isn't this the research? Like, looking at the Steam, I feel like this is the research, just the best you can do. Also, like, I'm really confused here. You don't like anything about it. You don't like anything about it, huh? You don't like a singular thing about it. Because I don't know about you, but if I don't like a singular thing about a game, there's no chance I'm passing like the 2-hour threshold. There's no shot I'm gonna get past that. I mean, if you gave us better reasons, maybe I could believe you. But I just don't believe. I think you're a liar. I'm gonna say it. I think you're a liar. I think you're lying. I think there was at least one thing you liked about it, and I think you liked the frog. You really, really liked the frog. I've beat the current version of the game multiple times. This is definitely a downgrade over Hades 1. The community is very toxic. Any suggestions or feedback to the game is met with skill issue. No genuine feedback is promoted in the community. Invulnerable bosses and enemies, they over-abuse this mechanic to the point of annoyance. You can have a high DPS build but still tap your feet for those fights for no reason. Very annoying. I encountered this in a boss fight. Paused, wrote this review, then came back to the game, played for about 10 seconds, then they went invulnerable again for 5 seconds. Nemesis is an annoying mechanic rather than challenging. Switch her to join the monsters in attacking you or something. I mean, I guess you got me cornered with the we're not accepting feedback about the game, but there's not a lot of feedback here, to be quite honest. Like, so you're complaining about the invulnerability in bosses, and honestly, I have a similar complaint. I don't really like invulnerability in boss fights either. I mean, the hyperbole that you somehow managed to write this entire Steam review in the time of that invulnerability phase seems like a bit much, if you ask me personally. But I mean, I get it. I mean, I get it. I don't really like it. It's something I put up with. I consider it a necessary mechanic for the flow of fights and to kind of differentiate the combat in some way. You play as a lady, WTF. You know, this makes me wonder if, like, back in, what year was it, like 1989? At the end of Metroid for the NES, when Samus is revealed to be a woman, did a bunch of gamers out there just suddenly change their Nintendo Power reviews to negative, and they wrote, "You play as a lady, WTF," once they discovered that fact? It's fascinating. They left this review 0.1 hours into the game and then continued to play for 17 more hours after this point, but they were so bothered by the fact that their character had breasts that they had to let the internet know that they are upset by this. And now, obviously, I'm not going to read this review, but it's fascinating to me that they couldn't even be bothered to boycott the game that bothers them so much. They had to make a weird, like, racial protest about it in the review section, but then they still played for 24 hours, and I'm just, like, confused, you know. 90% of all characters are female. Early access woke garbage. Hades 1 is better than this, and you can play a strong male character. You know, I just don't even know what to say here. You know, like, the internet has just been a real... It's been a place, let me tell you. The internet in 2024, it's a real place, you know, a place where people's entire personalities are based around the race and the sex of, you know, characters in a video game. Like, they base their entire being, their entire essence around what type of character they get to play as. And when they don't get to play as the character that they precisely wanted for some arbitrary reason, then they gotta let people know, hey, baby, this is early access woke garbage. Melon Wade's feet are distracting. Dev should add a sensor for them. I mean, this is probably one of the least horny reviews I've read for this game so far, honestly. Chronos unpaused the game while I was taking care of my baby. Nice waste of my time. I mean, I don't know, man. A waste of time? I mean, it just feels kind of harsh. I mean, it's your baby. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't tell you to have the baby, but if you feel like the baby's wasting your time, I don't know, maybe you could try hiring a nanny or a babysitter. Maybe you could consider daycare. It's kind of expensive, you know, but at least then you could play more Hades. Unattractive characters and final boss gave me a seizure. I'm still just confused around the fact that some of these people are just obsessed around the idea that every single fictional character should somehow be jerk-offable, specifically to them. It doesn't matter to everyone else, but what they deem as traditionally attractive should be what every single fictional character in media should be at all times. Because if you can't pull down your pants and jerk off your little wiener to every character that you see, then this game is not even worth your time. It's not worth anyone's time. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not going to go out there and just, you know, watch a pornography when I have something like Hades 2 that could have attractive characters for me to wank off to. Boo, boo, boo. Where do these people get $30 to just leave reviews for games like this? It's just fascinating to me. Imagine just throwing $30 into the garbage. I mean, that's what you did. You bought this game. You didn't really play it. You left a negative review. Was that worth $30? Because holy shit. I mean, I'll do that for $30 for you. You give me $30, I'll leave the same review on another. Just tell me the game, man. The siren song will make you want to drown yourself in the sink. Whoa, 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 whoa. I refuse to believe that you actually think that that song is bad. That you think any of the siren songs are bad. Those babies are gems and you love them. You continue to listen to them. You put that soundtrack on while you go to sleep. You want Skilla to caress your silky thighs as you fall asleep with her gentle tongue. And I won't hear it any other way.